Okay. Now we can talk. All right, this is episode 6 of Car Policy, and this is about the Mint origin story. That's what we're starting with. So back in 2009, everything in my life had completely fallen apart. I was in a band. I'd been playing in a band for 6 years. I'd recorded music. I was supposed to be going on tour. The tour got kind of the rug got pulled out from underneath me. Really cool story. Tell that one another time, but very sad for me. And so I had to leave Los Angeles because I was completely broke. And I decided to move up to Vancouver, Canada, where my grandmother lives, or rather lived, and I moved in with her. I was totally broke. My parents were living in Germany, and so I moved in with my 92-year-old grandmother, and my sister was living in downtown Vancouver, so I had that kind of connection.
Yeah, I was in grade 10 at the time. Colin, where were you at?
What year is this?
Yeah, 2009.
2009.
I was getting drunk at University of Delaware, not studying.
Okay,
Not
cool.
studying at all. Excellent.
Very
We
cool.
were in very different places. It's amazing how
Yeah.
the universe eventually brought us together, and we're sitting on this couch right now because
Yeah.
those are very different circumstances.
Yeah, I think I was in Susical the Musical.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Musical and musical.
continue your story.
Yeah,
And I was
Sam
ordering
has-
Red Bull vodkas at Klondike Kate's.
Very cool.
And Sam has a very rich history in musical theater.
Absolutely. But you're living with your grandma. Continue.
Living with my grandmother. And I don't know how it happened. It was one day I was sitting at her, like, just ridiculous. I mean, this computer was like from the early 1990s. And I came across a picture of the Bash Brothers. It was a picture of Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco. And I was sitting there and I had nothing going on in life. I was applying to business schools, but I had been, like, my test scores were just not where they should be. And so I had applied to schools and I got rejection from the school I wanted to go to. I applied to Cambridge, got rejected. And so I was kind of licking my wounds. And I saw this picture of the Bash Brothers, and it just jarred this memory in my head of, like, a really happy time when I was a kid. And I saw Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco. And so I Googled, like, baseball cards, Jose Canseco. And, like, as soon as I saw a few pictures of like 89 tops, 88 tops, 89 upper deck. It was just like, it was like this lightning hit my soul. It was like I wanted to, all of a sudden I was like, wait, what about those Mark McGuire cards? And I started Googling them and I saw 89, Mark McGuire, and 88 and 87. And it was just like, I don't think I went to bed until like 3 o'clock in the morning. I started, like, Googling all these players I liked and seeing their cards because I had collected when I was a kid, and then I stopped collecting when I was about 13, maybe 14, and moved to Germany and wasn't around cards or whatever. And so this time in 2009, when I was just turned 30 years old, it was my first time even seeing these pictures again, these cards.
Yeah, and, like, was it just the fact that, card collecting is still around? Was it like, I want to see what my cards are worth?
Nothing about that.
Well, what kind of, like, what was really making you so excited?
It was every time I saw a picture of a card I remembered, it just filled my soul with good, warm feelings. It was like this dopamine release. It's hard to describe. I just felt like it just made me feel kind of warm and cozy. I remember, like, just seeing, then I remembered, I was like, who are those other guys? And I was like, oh yeah, Don Mattingly. And there was Cal Ripken. And it was like, it opened up this part of my brain that I hadn't thought about since I was a kid.
Nostalgia.
It was like the most pure, it was like somebody injected pure nostalgia right into my heart. And it just filled me with good feelings. And that was it for the next, I think, week. All I did was, like, I'd go on Google and downloaded all these pictures, all these different cards, almost like I was building a digital collection. And then I started learning about them. And I figured that everything would be super expensive. I was like, okay, a Ken Griffey Jr. card is going to be like tens of thousands of dollars for his rookie card. And I was shocked when I discovered that these cards were actually still cheap, like really cheap. Like actually cheaper than when I had them at the age of 13. That I knew I could buy Canseco card for like 50 cents as opposed to maybe $2 from when I was a kid. And so it was just all these, like, warm, happy feelings, and it kind of got me through that next month or two. And I ended up working on the GMAT, ended up studying, took it again, tried to call Cambridge, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell them that that they actually should take me. Here's all these good reasons. And I called up the admissions office and I said, hey, listen, I know you guys rejected me. You put me on this wait list, but I think I'm the right fit for the school. And I'm going to bring all these special, these differences that you're not going to get from a lot of the other people there. And the guy on the phone picked up and was like, oh yeah, your name's Brian, right? Yeah, you're actually on a list that we want to invite out to Cambridge to come and interview. And so I ended up going out there, interviewing, getting in, but it was like this, there was this time of great sadness during kind of January, February, March of 2009, where my life felt like it had fallen apart. And it was these baseball cards that I was looking at the time while I was studying for the GMAT and prepping to, do this interview in Cambridge. And so it was like this kind of thing that made me feel happy and gave me a purpose. All of a sudden, I had no purpose at all. And all of a sudden, I started building these collections of cards. And I had this spreadsheet and I was putting the pictures in and, and then I'd go and, make dinner for my grandmother, or I'd meet my sister in downtown Vancouver. We'd have like a fun walk around Stanley Park on a weekend or something. But I remember being on the bus into Vancouver one day to see my sister. And I was like, you know what? I want to build a frame for a wall where I can put all my favorite cards up on the wall and be able to see them. Like if I have an office in the future, I want to be able to see all my cards on a frame on the wall. And I started designing this frame, and I'll have Sam post a picture of it right here for those who are watching this on YouTube. But like, I put this frame together of all my favorite cards that I could remember at that time. And I think it was like a 5x7 or something like that. And I put them all in this little order of when the players had come out, and organized also by kind of year and set. And I spent way too much time kind of making this thing. I called it my baseball card frame. And I would look at it, and just by looking at it, like I'm flying across the ocean to Cambridge to go interview, and I am on the plane looking at my frame and saying, well, do I want to switch the 2 Mark Grace cards? It was like this weird kind of design thing. I was really into the whole concept of how it would all fit together, the design, the order of it. And I was like, I'm dead set on this. As soon as I can, I'm going to build a frame for this thing, and I'm going to stick it on my wall. And if I have some office and I'm working at Apple or, one of these companies in the future, I'll have this really cool baseball card frame and in my office. And then anybody who comes in that remembers these things, it'll be a fun talking point. And I thought it would be a good way to kind of meet other like-minded people. That's how I saw it back then. And then when I got it, when I was at Cambridge and finally left grandma's house, moved to England, and moved in, I started ordering. It was the first time I actually started really buying cards and had them ordered and shipped out to the university. And I'd be in my dorm room opening packs and putting together this frame. But it was the kind of thing where I was like, okay, to do the frame properly, I don't want to wreck the cards by gluing them or taping them. Of
course.
It has to be somehow in a case of its own and then stuck onto the wall. And I looked at one touches, but I didn't like the look of one touches or top loaders. They were always off center. Like one touches, there's more at the top than there's at the bottom. I wanted it to be kind of uniform. So I put I've always loved design. I always love thinking about design. When I see badly designed homes or badly designed cars or anything, I'm always looking at things from a design perspective on how to improve it. And so with this frame that I had in my head, I was like, you're going to have a holder for it, and then you're going to have a walled thing. And I would like a whole wall display. And I would go and Google, every year I would Google, like, is there somebody making some sort of a wall display or a frame that I could put my cards into where my cards would be safe but look cool? And I never saw any. They were always just trash displays.
Sure. Were you going into card shops at all or asking people about it?
Yeah, I would go into card shops. I'd ask people about it. I started going into Hobby Lobby, going to Michael's, all the different kind of like hobby kind of shops of other hobbies, and trying to figure out how to do this. In fact, a girl that I was dating in 2000, like 15 or so, I would talk about my frame to her, and she was like, I want to, she's like, for your birthday, I want to go and actually get you this frame. And she goes, I went and talked to a frame shop, and, and they said, but they're going to have to destroy all your cards in order to put it into the frame and I said, yeah, I'd rather not destroy them, but super awesome. And thank you for, doing that. That was a really nice gesture, but I want to make something better. And I think if I wait another year or two, somebody's going to build something that is going to be worthy of the cards I want to put on the wall. And as these years went by, the cards that I had in that initial frame, I started taking them out as I learned more about the hobby. And I was like, well, actually, I want to have this card put in. And so some of the values on some of the cards started increasing. And, I wanted to have a Nolan Ryan rookie in there. I didn't have that in my first iteration of the frame. I wanted to have a George Brett rookie, and I wanted to have a Mike Schmidt rookie. And so I started learning more about the cards, and I really focused on Hall of Fame players kind of between like 1968 and 1993 to build my frame. And so nobody ever really solved this problem until pandemic came, and the three of us, all of a sudden I had some more disposable income at the time. And so I started buying more cards. And so I didn't buy cards because of Mint beginning. I was actually buying some because I wanted to open some packs and just kind of...
Yeah, you didn't tell us about it at all.
I didn't tell anybody about it.
Opening packs and we had no idea.
Yeah, like I didn't really tell anybody about it. I mean, my sister knew about it, my parents. If I was dating a girl for like a year, I'd finally be like, yeah, I collect cards. It was something I really, really hid.
Yeah, why did you hide that again?
I hid it because I felt a weird sense of shame. It's hard to describe, but like when I was up in Canada, looking at those cards when I was 30 years old, and I was like, a grown man, 30 years old, looking at baseball cards from his childhood, I felt there was this sense of kind of a shame about it. It's hard to describe. I'm guessing there's a lot of people that experience that. Maybe they collect action figures or comic books or coins or...
Well, there was no online communities for you to feel like you were part of a like-minded group that felt like it was cool to do that. You had no affirmation from an outside, validation that this is cool. Even though there were people everywhere doing it, there was no way to know.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like I'd walk into card shops in Vancouver. All the card shops I first went to were in Vancouver, Canada. And they were always kind of like trashy little dodgy shops with like blacked out windows. So I think part of it is going into those shops made it feel kind of, tacky or sleazy almost, where you'd go in and there'd be one guy behind his desk. There'd be all these, dusty kind of counters and cards. Yeah. Those two shops actually both went out of business. Yeah. But there was something that felt weird about it. And I didn't know why, but I still felt compelled to want to put my collection together. And when I'd see all these dusty things and cardboard and plastic, I was like, man, this hobby like that I enjoy deserves something better. And I did find there was one guy that I followed that I found. It was Baseball Card Blog. I don't know if any of you that are listening to this ever read the Baseball Card Blog, but I started reading it in 2009. And the person that wrote that, and I can't remember who did, but that person I really resonated with. That person, it felt like they were speaking to me. That was like, I guess, the first influencer I followed. And I learned a lot of my baseball card knowledge was from the Baseball Card Blog. I don't think it exists. No, it doesn't exist anymore. I think he stopped writing it like 8 or so years ago. But I always wanted there to be a better way than these dusty, dingy kind of smell like smoke kind of card shops, and turned it into something much nicer.
For sure. But I'm curious, when was the moment that you're like, oh, everyone's doing this? This isn't like this should not be a shameful hobby. Oh crap, millions of people collect cards.
Yeah, I never really Googled or looked up. And that, in fact, I never bought any modern cards. I only bought the vintage stuff. Yeah. I only bought things that were from either my era, like the 80s, early 90s, or stuff from the 70s, 60s, 50s, and so on. And so I didn't really look at any of the modern things. Something felt just weird about buying new boxes. I just didn't get into the whole style of new kind of packaging. There's too many variations, Bowman Chrome, Topps Chrome, Dynasty, and there was just so many different modern stuff that I found it to be completely overwhelming. And so I didn't get into any kind of community thing at all, other than Baseball Card Blog, until it was 2000. What was that? Early 2021?
Yep.
Early 2021. Actually, it was my very first TikTok post. So this is what happens. Fast forward. That's when I finally got over it. Yeah, that's when I got over the shame and realized, whoa, there's a lot of people out there.
Interesting.
Like up until then, I didn't know really anything about it because I had my own version of collecting, and it was just very solo, very solitary. And yeah, I'd talk about it with a few friends. There were 2 Americans in Cambridge that I would talk about cards with. And I gave them some cards while I was in school. And like I gave a Jose Canseco rookie card to one of my professors who had given me a gift. And I gave an 89 Upper Deck Griffey to a buddy of mine who helped me with some legal work at Cambridge. But it was during the pandemic. Colin, Sam, and I were working on our health and wellness company. I was buying these baseball cards, and we were starting to transition into maybe doing this veterinarian business. And I think I might have shown you guys a few of the cards that they were sitting on my desk. I was opening packs or whatever. But
Maybe, yeah.
it was really when the topic of what are we doing next? And Colin come, that day sitting on the couch at Colin's place, and he was like, Brian, surely let's take 5 minutes to look at other options. Do you remember that moment?
So we felt like we had this obligation to just keep working. We were working on a business that was dependent on the pandemic, more or less, right? We were providing a service to help with COVID testing, and we knew that wasn't forever, and so we pivoted towards leveraging the current platform we developed and using it for a veterinarian business. And we'd done all the research, but I remember one day we woke up and I was just like, wait a second. I had this aha moment. I'm like, wait, we don't really, I don't think any of us really want to be doing this. I don't think this is
not as much as like we thought we did on day one.
This doesn't really line. Like, let's put ourselves in our own shoes 5 years ago, and if we could only look into the future and know that we had these resources and flexibility, would we be doing this, or would we pick and choose? And that's when I introduced this exercise of let's take an hour. We had just started kind of talking about the to-dos of the day, and I was just like, I don't really want to be doing this in my own head. And I'm like, surely there's got to be something better. So I posed a question to the group. I said, how would you guys feel if we took an hour, the next hour, to just kind of reflect in solitude on the things that we love, the things that get us up in the morning, and then see if any of those things could be possibly used in some kind of business. Could we attach a business to any of these things? See if there's any crossover among us, and let's do this exercise. So we took an hour. We all took out a piece of paper. We wrote some stuff down. Came back an hour later, and we each had a really cool list of about 10 things across all different disciplines and genres and hobbies and interests. I mean, you name it. Things that get us up in the morning. And there's a lot of crossover here, obviously. But the one thing that stuck out to us the most, that we thought, wow, there could probably really be a business there more than the other things, or more quickly than the other things, was Brian's line item, which was better protections and displays and preservation for trading cards. And then that just sparked a whole day of just research, and that's when we realized there was a hole here in the industry. There was a void waiting to be filled.
Yeah. How did you feel when I first told you about the idea, Sam?
Me? Oh man. Well, just going back to what Colin was saying, was when you presented the idea, it was kind of like a what? What do you mean there's no high-end protections and displays for cards that are worth thousands, millions of dollars? And so it was kind of I didn't necessarily believe you at first. I was like, there's no way. And then like Colin said, we did our research, came back to you, and we're like, there is literally no one doing this. And that idea turned into the most, I've never been that excited in my life, actually, because I just saw this huge opportunity where we could change our lives and we can change a whole industry. And that was just, I keep on saying exciting, but it was just so exciting that we were kind of on the brink of something revolutionary, and to be part of that at the early stages was pretty cool. So
yeah, I always liked the idea of doing things that nobody's ever done, or if somebody has done something before, I want to do something that's just an order of magnitude better, like a whole paradigm shift. And so I thought, if I'm going to do this thing about cards and displays, then we got to go all the way with this thing. And so that very first day, I sketched up a design of what I thought a case for a trading card in its kind of perfected form would be. And the first thing that was non-negotiable for me is it had to be made out of glass. And so my first image of it was two pieces of glass coming together with a thin piece of metal around the edges to kind of hold it together.
And there were diamonds in there too.
And I put diamonds in there, man. I put little tiny diamond chips, and I had, instead of the grade with some flip at the top, I had everything kind of see-through, but with the grade kind of on the bottom, but very minimalist. It was like...
It was engraved in, essentially.
It was engraved into the glass. And so I was like, okay, this is what I want. I want something heavy. I want it to feel heavy in my hand so that it bears the weight of the value of both nostalgia or value as far financially that I assign to it, or that it's assigned by kind of the whole of the market. And so I drafted this up and kind of sat on it for a couple of days. I even designed the packaging. I think the packaging was the very next thing of like,
we worked on the packaging.
And as soon as I kind of saw those things, and I couldn't help myself, I had to put these things together, and I built a spreadsheet or like a whole PowerPoint presentation kind of thing, keynote presentation of all the different kind of images. And I was having so much fun with it that I started putting in different cards that I like into my own little case I had designed on this, keynote file. And I was just having a blast with it. And I got super excited, and I was like, whoa, if I'm excited about this, there's got to be at least enough collectors out there that would like to have better designed cases and displays to justify this being a business. And I would see things like Show Your Slabs. I would see, PSA cases, SGC, Beckett, all the other cases.
The bar's been so low, though. I mean, no one had ever considered display or cases until Ultra Pro, and once that became ubiquitous across the industry, no one thought to innovate beyond. Mm-hmm. Certainly, the graders were never thinking about cases. The graders are selling one thing and one thing only, and that's a grade. The cases had never been. They probably thought about it. It was
like
always
an afterthought.
Always an afterthought.
It was the simplest solution you could have possibly have imagined for protecting a card, and then it stopped, and then there was no innovation beyond.
But yeah, the whole idea of protecting a card, it wasn't even just that. It was just plastic. Like, these cases aren't UV protected. All these things that, as you do your research and you kind of like go into it more, you're like, wait a minute, this is actually not just it's a huge problem. Yeah, these assets are degrading inside. I think did they fix the off gassing issues with graded cases? I think PSA may have addressed it. I don't think so. There's off gassing, there's UV protection, there's rattling, there's counterfeiting, there's all these things.
Yeah,
but it's so funny when you look at it, because all of those things that have happened as a result of these poor, crappy cases came when there wasn't as much attention on the kind of like the value that the cards have now. You know, in retrospect, it's like, I guess that's all they should have done. They didn't know that the industry would become.
There were people back in the early 90s, though. I remember as a kid, you could buy these like giant bricks of plexiglass
and screw them
and
together.
They had screws, and people would build their own kind of, these displays, because people did want to display them. They did want to protect them. The irony there is that the screw in plastic actually ruined the cards.
It's like no one really looked at it as scientifically as they do fine art nowadays.
Yeah.
Or have been for decades.
It was always an afterthought. People always wanted something better. I did. Everybody else did.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. What's the name of the company that actually takes out baseball cards out of the graded slabs because they know that it's bad for them?
The Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was Baseball Hall of Fame.
Baseball Hall of Fame takes them out of those graded cases.
Yeah, we read an article that said if somebody gives them graded cases, they open them up because they don't know how the polymers, the plastic, interact with the cards over a period of time.
Which is a huge problem.
And that's to my earlier point about museums having a higher standard of care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it has been, most industries that are ripe for innovation, people just get used to, this is how we do it. This is how we've always done it. Whether it's the taxi industry, everyone is like, oh, this is how it's done it. And then Uber shows up and, decimates the taxis, or like BlackBerry. I remember I was working at Disney back in 2007, and everyone was obsessed with their Crackberries, their BlackBerries. They had to have the QWERTY keyboard. Mm-hmm. And everyone at Disney was like, this is the way, this is the only way we'll do it. And I walked in 2007 with an iPhone 1, because I've always been an early adopter in anything technology. And I remember walking in and showing everyone an iPhone. And people were like, yeah, but there's no QWERTY keyboard. And I was like, no, it's called multi-touch. You do it like this. You can type like this. And they're like, no, that'll never, I'm happy with my QWERTY
Yeah, they're
keyboard.
comfortable with it.
They're
right?
super comfortable.
Yeah.
I think people get so used to comfort on things that they just, take for granted. And so I think with like a lot of the cases in the hobby, like PSA and Beckett and so on, and all the other like 40 other graders that popped up, during the pandemic time.
They can't be all around still.
No, I don't think so. I've heard of a few that have definitely disappeared. But it was just kind of like, well, I guess this is what we've always done. The very first PSA cases look pretty close to the ones that are currently out right now. There's not that much of a difference. I mean, there's a little bit of extra protection. The plastic's a little bit better, but overall, it's not that large of a departure. If you put a 1991 PSA case next to a 2024 case, they're pretty close. I mean, it's not an order of magnitude change, right? And so I think people just got really comfortable in accepting subpar protections and displays. I think that's what happened. And so I think when the three of us were talking about it and we dug in deep, I think the thing that really changed everything, so we, when we were looking at this, we thought there's got to be a better way. And I had my designs, but I'm like, I'm not a professional designer. I'm not an engineer. And it was like, we need to hire one. We need to bring someone in to see if there is a better way to do this. And we won the absolute lottery.
You found him so quickly.
I found him that day. I just went on Upwork.
Jeez.
I went on Upwork. Who would have thought a 2-minute click on Upwork would change my life?
Not a sponsor.
Yeah, exactly. Not a sponsor. And I found this guy, Xavier, in San Francisco, and he and I just immediately bonded over this project.
Because he's a card collector as well.
Yeah, he collects cards, but it was just, we had similar backgrounds. He grew up in Germany on a military base, so did I. And we were there even at the same time. And we got to talking, and he goes, I think I know what you guys want with this. And so he came back like maybe a week or two later with initial sketches. And I remember when the three of us saw it, it blew our minds. Do you remember that?
Of course.
I think we were like driving across to Arizona.
Oh yeah, because
We were at a gas station stop in the middle of Arizona on our way to to Phoenix because we were looking at maybe opening a calzone
That's when it was.
shop.
That's when we were at the fork in the road after the success of the wellness company, and we weren't sure whether to go left or right.
Yeah.
Left being this company, or right being DP Dough franchise owners.
And DP Dough.
What's DP Dough?
Oh man.
I love DP Dough.
What's DP Dough? Remind everyone, the good people out there, what DP Dough is, if they don't know what it is.
I'm from the West Coast. I didn't grow up with it. You guys.
Okay, so I did my undergrad at Cornell in Ithaca, New York, and there was a calzone shop right in town in College Town.
It's generous to call it a calzone shop. It's really, really like low quality dough, stuffed with all kinds of crap in the vague form of a calzone.
Man, it was so good. I loved it so much.
Yeah, but it's yeah.
I survived my last year of college. Or really my last 2 years of college in Ithaca. I survived on DP.
It should say, required, 8 beers deep before enjoying
Yeah,
one
it
of
should
these.
have certain health
because-
warnings or something.
Because no sober person would ever
awful.
enjoy
Sorry.
DP Dough.
Well,
It's not
I was a
level it should
sober
be.
person and I ate so much DP dough.
You were the exception to the rule.
Yeah, and so we traveled to Arizona because we were thinking about either opening our own or buying a DP Dough.
Yeah,
that
we were
currently
looking at
existed.
franchising some DP doughs because I wanted to take the money that we had made because I'd spent so much of my life being so risky and taking all these chances, and I wanted to have a sustainable cash flow that would just be like a minimum
Guaranteed.
income. And so I thought, well, let's take all this cash from the health and wellness company and put it into something like a franchise or something that will just kick off a monthly check to then go and do other things. But I didn't ever want to be on the edges of poverty ever again because I'd been there several times. What I didn't know is I was going to be there twice more after this.
Yep.
But so DP Dough kind of came and went. But on that trip across Arizona, we got the first document. I think that was when it happened. We got a document from Xavier, and it blew our minds. The first thing that blew my mind about it is that he took all the information that had previously been on the flips and moved it to the side in a laser etch on a steel bezel. It was like this
A game changer.
super simple change, but instead of having like all the information up top, laser etching it all on the side.
And this has been
Wow.
a thing that has been kind of up for debate for people in terms of what they're wanting to change with current slabs. Even before that came about, people were like, what if we put the flip on the bottom?
Yeah.
And that was like a revolutionary idea. You know, people were trying to think of a solution to
because
bring
people
more
hate the
focus,
flips.
and they want to bring more focus and attention to the card itself.
Yeah. Why do you want a card that has a card catalog kind of Dewey Decimal System thing on the top that completely not only distracts from the card, but it's totally asymmetric. And so it's kind of lopsided.
It's also like a third of the size of the card.
It is.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. And I remember Xavier, when he was first talking about it, he goes, you did this thing called the squint test as a designer. And he goes, if you squint, you're looking at a card, your eyes are drawn up to that flip up to the top.
Smart.
And he goes, it shouldn't be that way. He goes, eliminate the flip, put it on the side in a laser etch.
Blew our minds.
Blew our minds.
I remember Brian screaming at the gas station, he gets it. He gets it.
He gets it.
He gets it.
He gets it.
When I say that somebody gets it,
They get it.
that's probably one of the biggest like badges of honor that I can give to somebody.
Oh, yeah.
I care about that more than
Yes.
almost anything else.
Gets it.
If somebody gets it,
He's on the same page.
totally on the same page.
Yeah, no, we were really stoked about it.
Really happy about it. And even his first initial drawings are pretty much exactly what we have today with Mint.
Pretty
there's,
close.
I mean, there's a variation.
Pretty close.
The one problem that Xavier had, though, is that he is not a mechanical engineer.
Shame on him.
I know. How dare he only be an amazing industrial designer?
Son of a gun.
No, he's so talented. Xavier is beyond talented.
And a really
So
nice guy.
grateful. And yeah, great guy. I love this guy. It's fun hanging out with him. And so I asked him, after we went through a lot of iterations of packaging, and for some reason we thought packaging was really important back then.
That's true. And sorry, just one thing I wanted to touch on, just
Yeah.
to toot Xavier's horn some more. Not just from a design element, just from a looks perspective, but he was pitching so many really cool technologies to you too at a very early stage.
Yeah.
Some that will obviously integrate in the future.
Some that will be in M1NT Case
like
2.0.
like this guy's he's a smart kid.
Yeah, no, Xavier already kind of designed the G2, the G3 cases.
Yeah, he killed it.
And so, yeah, he deserves to have his horn tooted. And he's actually an equity holder now in the company, which is really cool.
Really,
I
really cool.
remember why we focused on packaging is because at the time the whole unboxing fad was really popular across YouTube, TikTok, etc. And the only comparison we had was the only standard was cardboard boxes and bubble wrap.
Yeah.
For cards coming back from, let's say, a PSA or whatever. So, given that was the bar, it could only go up from there. That's when we were like, hey, let's turn the receiving of the shipment as an experience in and of itself. What does that? Then we looked towards Apple. We all know that whenever you receive something from Apple, the unboxing is luxurious. So, what aspects of that can we integrate into this?
Well,
Yeah.
And that's true. But it was also one other big piece, which was I thought it wasn't going to take that long to manufacture.
That's what I was going to
things.
say. We thought we were going to come in so quick into the market.
Yeah, I was like, how hard can putting two pieces of glass and a steel chassis around it? How hard can that be?
Well, that's not hard. What we didn't realize is that wasn't what the product ended up being.
Yeah,
Very
it ended
true.
up being
a lot more.
15 or so more pieces.
Yeah, because like you said, Xavier wasn't a mechanical engineer, and so he found you a prototyping company, right?
Yeah.
And then through his design, sent the designs over, sent you a prototype, and it was just falling apart.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so after Xavier, we had made a choice on the design of the one that I wanted to build. I said, Xavier, let's go and do this. He goes, okay, I got a prototyping lab. We'll take it to. So he took it there, and he did. He brought in piece of steel, two pieces of glass, and gave him a card.
Gold inlay.
Oh yeah, he put a really nice gold inlay. We thought the gold inlay looked really cool on the design pictures. And so then I went up to San Francisco when it was delivered, and I remember just being so on edge because I was like, I really want this to be easy. I want this to be a simple process. Okay, we have glass, steel. Now let's go and replicate these things. And I remember sitting at this co-working space that Xavier belonged to. And we sat down, and he showed it to me, and my heart just completely sank. Because I was like, this thing is hideous. I remember thinking it was ugly.
Sure.
It was short and squatty.
It was nothing like the renderings.
It was nothing like the pictures.
It was, but it
wasn't.
It didn't translate.
It didn't translate because in my head I'm seeing the finished version of the pictures of the renders.
Of course.
And an issue that all industrial designers have with us normal people is that they'll go and make these incredible renders, and then you'll and then we'll go and see a prototype of it, and if it doesn't match the render, we all feel disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time you talk to an industrial designer, they're like, "Don't focus. The renders are renders. They're not going to look like this in real life."
Everyone making a product in the past has gone through this situation, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
They've been disappointed.
It's hugely disappointing. And so I remember asking Xavier, I was like, "Hey, great job doing this." And he was very confessed about it. He's like, "I'm not a mechanical engineer. I'm an industrial designer." And so he was very upfront about all that. And he goes, "What this case needs in order to be great is it's going to need mechanical engineering." And I was like, "Oh man, that took this project from what I thought was going to be a simple project to a very long, expensive, hard, but awesome project." And so we'll talk about that more later, but it was cool. We took that squatty, short first prototype, and we took it to a handful of people,
including cash cards
and our friends over there. And we actually got incredible feedback from people. So even though I was really kind of disappointed with it, the essence of it being, here's something that's heavy, that it's steel, that's glass, that comes together and protects the card. The people we showed it to were like, "This is visionary. This
Everyone
is
understood
revolutionary."
the market need.
They knew that there was something there. It just had to be refined.
And it wasn't friends and family too. The cool thing about this industry is that card collectors are the most honest, brutally honest people, which is so refreshing. Like, they're not going to lie to your face. They're going to be like, "I don't like this. This is bad. This is stupid. This is what you need to improve." So getting that reassurance at early stages.
Yeah, it was very validating.
Yeah.
Those first handful of collectors and high-end collectors we showed it to was extremely validating. Especially our friend Johnny. When Johnny held it and saw it, and he was like, "This is the future."
That's true, Johnny.
Who's now the artist that we commissioned to be in our packaging for the Mint hobby cases that are going to be coming out soon. And so that's the beginning of how we went and developed our very first prototype. I didn't mean to get into such detail.
No.
Like,
I
think
there's a lot
let's
there,
totally
right?
save the mechanical engineering story and how we went from prototype to prototype to prototype to now our finished product.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's talk about next time for sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
let's do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
guys
that was
have-
episode 6. Stay tuned for episode 7.
You're going to the playoff baseball games,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Actually, that's what I got to get ready for. Is I'm going to see the Padres and the Dodgers. They are tied 1 game each. The
Big game.
Dodgers got destroyed in the
game.
last one.
What's it? Was it 7:00 tonight?
It's at 6:00 in San Diego, and I'm really excited for it.
On 3, say
excited for you.
the name of the team that's going to win. 1, 2, 3.
Mets.
Padres.
Mets.